Hello there, Cav P here. Over the last few decades, Western museums around the world have begun to come face to face with a decolonial reckoning. The British Museum is probably the most notorious example of this. You know, a museum has a certain reputation when its colonial theft has become a meme. Increasingly, museums have responded to calls to decolonize in various ways. I don't think that anyone could say that these initiatives are perfect in and of themselves or that more couldn't be done. But one thing that you'd be hard-pressed to say is that museums have done nothing. Which brings us to the international exhibitions. As I record this, Osaka is currently hosting the Kansai Expo 2025, the latest in the international exhibitions. Although the purpose and methods underpinning the exhibitions have changed over time, it's worth noting at this point that the Bureau International des Expositions, which has governed the exhibitions since 1928, excuse my French, includes all the major international exhibitions held prior to its establishment within its canon as well. And this is interesting when you consider that the exhibitions of the 19th and early 20th centuries were increasingly used as opportunities to promote the ideas of social evolution and manifest destiny which fueled colonial expansion and enterprise. The careful arrangement of different objects in relation to each other facilitated the comparison of cultures and was utilized by imperial powers to convey their superiority over non-white and colonized peoples. Think about it. If you see displays of cutting-edge machinery from Germany placed opposite wooden throwing spears from New Caledonia or a Fijian object simply labeled cannibal fork, how would this impact on your perception of these countries? Also, there's a long and established relationship between museums and the international exhibitions, feeding off each other's representational strategies, as well as through the transfer and exchange of objects, in what Tony Bennett calls the exhibitionary complex. With this in mind, it's worth asking why there has not been the same decolonial introspection we're seeing in museums happening in the modern incarnation of the international exhibition, despite the fact that they both fed the colonial machine in similar ways. Welcome to my PhD project, looking into the representation of the global majority at Victoria's 19th century international and intercolonial exhibitions, in order to answer 4 key questions. What, why, and how were global majority objects collected and used to represent global majority people at the Great Exhibitions? In what ways were global majority people involved in these processes? How did representation and interpretation of these objects change following acquisition by Victorian collecting institutions after the close of the exhibitions? And for what purpose? And how can connections be made today between these newly identified objects and global majority people, including cultural diaspora communities, for new knowledge generation, cultural revitalization, and catharsis or healing from cultural trauma? I'm hoping to answer these questions through a 2-pronged approach, consisting of a research phase and an exegetical phase. The research phase will include close readings of archival documents, such as official exhibition records and museum registers, in order to identify objects which were both exhibited at Victorian exhibitions and subsequently acquired into Australian collecting institutions, conducting interviews with cultural representatives from communities relevant to the identified objects in order to verify their provenance and provide extra contextual information, and conducting background research into the broader socio-cultural contexts in which these objects were exhibited, both at the exhibitions and at the relevant museum, while paying close attention to the arrangement of objects when they were displayed or stored. The exegetical phase will include development of a detailed brief for an exhibition aiming to tell the stories of some of the global majority objects displayed at the exhibitions from a decolonial lens. With any luck, it will also include collaboration with Australian-based cultural diaspora artists who would like to engage with objects relevant to their communities. The importance of my research will lie in locating significant global majority objects in collections, which may have been overlooked in museum documentation, and in telling new stories of Australia and its near neighbours. The museum exhibition I hope to develop will also contribute to understandings about how colonial ideas of race and frontier expansion have been propagated through different curated encounters with the ethnic other in Australia. I really hope you'll join me on this exploratory journey across time and space, as I seek to excavate the colonial history which continues to haunt our colonial present. Thank you.